Hello, I'm Elliott Forrest from WQXR, and we are both swimming and welcoming each other. Joining me is the Grammy Award winning violinist who's also the artist in residence right now at the New York Philharmonic, violinist and my friend Hilary Hahn. Great to see you.
Good to see you. Thank you so much.
It's been a while since we've talked, and certainly not through the pandemic. Just quickly, how did you survive all that? I'm guessing lots of things were canceled, and you're back in full swing. How was that for you?
I was very lucky in many ways, but for me, I realized that the thing that I need in order to be a fully functioning human is performances and connections through music, through live music. So I learned that the hard way. I'm sure there's an easier way to learn it. I wish there were an easier way, and none of that had to happen. But overall, I was able to learn a lot of valuable things that have really fueled me returning. So I'm not grateful at all for COVID, but um, I think it's a chance to now reset and break some old patterns.
You know, it's so interesting that you say what you needed to be a live human is to be to play music, to hear music again. You know, during the pandemic, lots of recordings. We heard music through speakers, and I'm hoping a
Mhm.
lot of people listen to it on the radio. But I have to say that, and I'm just curious from your perspective, the first time I was actually in a room with live voices, the physicality of
Oh.
those wavelengths hitting me, both from instruments and voices sort of really shook me to my core because it was like, wow, I hadn't felt that physically for a number of years.
hmm I've had an experience before on a prior sabbatical where I didn't listen to anything for about 4 months. And when I turned the radio on, it was the radio, it was Saint-Saëns Organ Symphony, and it was the most amazing thing I'd ever heard. In those 4 months, my brain had somehow stopped being an analytical musician brain and just become open to the sounds of music. It was like magic sounds being conjured. And so I know that feeling that you're talking about. For me, when I came back, I'm the only musician in my house, so I didn't even hear anyone playing during the lockdowns, and then the season that for me was largely canceled. So when I came back into the room with other musicians, right around when I was making my Eclipse recording, um, I just felt like everything was in audio technicolor. Um, Dolby Atmos wouldn't capture it. It was just, I don't know how else to describe it. It sounds cheesy, but it felt like life. Like the blood had been drained out and the blood was coming back into my veins. And I didn't realize how much of a life force that is for me. And I just felt so grateful and so joyful to have it back.
You have a number of performances with the New York Philharmonic
Mhm.
this month in January of 24. You're an artist in residence there. What does that really entail?
When I do an artist residency, I really try to work with the organization, the entire organization, to see how I can bring some of my ideas that I like to present in different places into that particular city, in that particular organization, that audience, but also outside of the concert hall. I like to find out what the presenting organization's connections are, what programs are they running in the community, and how can we do something customized to my visit as well within those programs. So I'm really excited about this because New York, Lincoln Center, New York Phil, they've been so important in my life. QXR, it's been so important in my career from my almost, I think actually my preteen years. So I'm really grateful to have this full circle time.
You've got a number of works that you're going to play. Do you want to tell us what's on these programs?
Sure. So this particular week, I'm doing Prokofiev 1, but I'm also doing a nightcap concert with members of the New York Phil. We're doing Copeland Appalachian Spring together in the 13-player version. And the collaboration that's brand new for me that I've been wanting to do for so long and it hasn't ever worked out. I'm doing a duo with ballerina Tyler Peck, one of the superstars in New York and also internationally. And she is choreographing a collaboration. So it's her and me, and we're the only two people on stage. And we're going to do Stephen Banks' piece, Through My Mother's Eyes. We're going to do Andante by Bach, and then that'll be part of both of our repertoire. And I'm also playing the Ginastera Violin Concerto later. The thing I love about that piece, it was on my album Eclipse, and it's just a piece that I've been obsessed with for a really long time. If I get going talking about it, I won't stop for 15 minutes. But in a nutshell, the reason I wanted to do it with the Phil as part of this residency is it was commissioned by Bernstein and the New York Phil and premiered with Ruggero Ricci in honor of Lincoln Center, then not played again by the orchestra. The middle movement is, and that's not unusual in New York. Many, many orchestras have never even played it ever. And it's a genius work. It's not that there is anything lacking in it. In fact, it's got so much in it that's beautiful and intricate and powerful, confrontational, and magic that I think it is a huge undertaking unless you have an advocate on stage who knows it. So that's a role that I love to take on with that piece.
There's a hashtag on your social medias that says 100 days of practice. What was that?
Well, I just started season 7, so I've done 600 and 600 days of practice, so now it's 603 because I'm on day 3 on this very moment. But if you go to my Instagram, Violin Case, you can see that I'm going through my 100 days. And nowadays, I tend to start it on January 1st. It's not a challenge. It's just 100 days in the life of being a practicing person. So sometimes you may choose not to practice that day. You don't fail 100 days. That is part of the 100 days. That's part of a healthy practice. So it's more just noticing yourself, practicing. I don't prepare the videos in advance. I'll just be practicing. I push record on my phone while I'm practicing. And I believe you may have one in your archives from a prior visit. Wherever I am, whenever I'm practicing that day, I try to capture it. It really caught on, and I realized that there's this gap, a sort of a toxicity around practice where you're supposed to do it every day. You're supposed to get better on your own by yourself, but you never see anyone practicing, and you never get ideas as to how people approach their practice. It's somehow seen as taboo to be vulnerable, as having, I don't know, I don't consider it vulnerable to have mistakes seen visibly because your results are on stage. So of course you're going to be working.
Most people don't want to show their mistakes, but you got to work that out somewhere.
Everyone is working it out. Everyone is going through this. So somehow it was very validating for people to see that I also am working. And I was like, okay, let's keep this going. Because actually, now that I think about it, I have a lot of those patterns embedded in me as well. So let me work through my things while we all work through them together. And it became a really positive, supportive community.
You grew up in Baltimore, grabbing the fiddle, if I remember it right, when you were like 3. What was that? Your parents weren't musicians.
What was
How,
that?
I mean, how did the, I think about this a lot because if Mozart's family had never had a piano,
Oh,
you know what I mean? It was just like, it
yeah.
was a great thing they did because, you're a parent, you want to expose your kids to sports and music and theater and you hope something clicks. Why did that click for you, do you think?
Well, there was no violin in the house, but there was a lot of music in the house. We were always listening to classical radio. We always had some instrument being played by or practiced by one parent or another. And it was just amateur, but every day. And I remember hearing my dad singing in in the house, like when I was a little bit older, he sang in a choir. I remember him practicing every day and thinking, but he already knows it. Why is he doing it every day? He already did this yesterday. Um, so I know from that memory that I was around it a lot, but we were taking a walk one day in our neighborhood when we lived in an apartment building in Towson outside of Baltimore. And there was a music school that we didn't know was a music school, but there was a sign outside that said music lessons for 4-year-olds. And that was it. It was kind of a why not moment. I watched a little boy in his lesson, and I don't remember the lesson, but I do remember afterwards, I think my dad asked me, so is that something you want to try? And I remember thinking, sure, why not? And I don't know how I remember that so clearly, but that is one of my earlier memories.
One of my favorite moments with you, I don't even know if you remember this, and it was running into you in Hong Kong. I don't know if you remember this, but it was like I was shooting a television show for A&E, and we were really covering the music and theater, and we were just happened to be staying at the same hotel, and I think you'd already been on TV with me or radio, and it's like we just put you on. It was just such a funny and exciting moment to just go, oh my God, look, she's right here. And
It's a really small world.
it is a small world. I run into so many other musicians just at the airport, because it's like you got to come and you got to go.
Or the elevator in a hotel. Like the door opens and someone walks in and you're like, hi, what
Right.
are you doing here?
More
And
concerts.
yeah, and then you have breakfast together and then it's nice.
New York Philharmonic artist in residence for this year at 2024 with the New York Philharmonic with concerts coming up. Violinist Hilary Hahn. Always good to check in with you. I think I've probably interviewed you on and off maybe for more than 20 years, and it's been
Yep.
really gratifying to check in and out of your life and see your growth and see everything you've done. Congratulations for everything.
Same here. To see your growth and see you see you progress into the artist of QXR that you are. It's really funny for me too because I have been doing this career for so long. I'm 44, but I'm thinking about often like 30 years ago I did this, and 30 years ago I had my debut with the New York Philharmonic. I was 14 and I'd already been coming to QXR for little studio recordings, which was a wonderful opportunity for me. And then when I was 14, Midori canceled with the New York Philharmonic. I was in class at Curtis. I got the news and I took my homework with me and went to New York. And that was my first time. So, it's 30 years. And I remember 30 years ago, I remember this whole arc of things. And it's nice because people who I talked to like 20 years ago, you, for example, we get to check in and you get to have those ongoing conversations, and I get to pick up where we left off. And it's just really nice too because it's a small world amongst musicians, but it's also a small world amongst the entire musical community. Broadcasting has evolved, but people are still bringing their knowledge through all these years. So that's what I mean when I say you too. I'm not being, I'm actually not being sarcastic. I'm being like, it's really a side of things. It's a side of things that artists don't talk about very much. But for us to have the long-term interviews is really quite special. So thank you.
Let's not make it so long next time.
Absolutely.
Take care. Thank you so much.
You too.